Okay, here we go. Let's go to the poem. An African Thunderstorm by David Rubadri. From the west, clouds come hurrying with the wind, turning sharply here and there like a plague of locusts, whirling, tossing up things on its tail like a madman chasing nothing. Pregnant clouds, pregnant clouds ride stately on its back. What type of figure of speech is that? What type of figure of speech is that? It's personification, because remember, clouds can't be pregnant and they can't ride stately. Stately means like queens, like kings. Then gathering to perch on heels like sinister dark wings. The wind whistle by and trees bend to let it pass. In the village, screams of delighted children toss and turn in the din of the whirling wind. Women, babies clinging on their backs, dart about in and out madly. The wind whistles by, and whilst trees bend to let it pass. Now, clothes wave like tattered flags, flying off to expose dangling breasts as jagged blinding flashes rumble, tremble. Jagged blinding flashes. You know what jagged is? You know when they draw those like thunderstorm in a where's this thing? I'll just show you what this looks like. Sorry. In the cartoons, it looks like this, jagged. Okay, there we go. Let me just have a look to see. Oh, you won't be able to see. Okay. So back here. Back here. Okay, so it says jagged blinding flashes. What do you think that is? Flashes. Lightning. There we go. Is that it, Randy? Is that what you wanted to say? I'm sorry.
So could you please zoom in a bit?
Can I please?
Zoom in a bit.
Okay, I thought as much.
So.
So look at this. Is that better?
Thank you.
Let's do this. I should have done it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, great. Whilst trees bend to let it pass, clothes wave like tattered flags flying off to expose. This is obviously the ladies' dangling breasts as jagged blinding flashes rumble, tremble and crack amidst. Oh, we know. Let's get this out of the way. I'm so sorry. There we go. Why am I having a difficult time? Oh, it's because I did this. To expose dangling breasts as jagged blinding flashes rumble and crack amidst the smell of fired smoke and the pelting march of the storm. The pelting march, it feels like the storm is marching on, like those who are in an army, like soldiers in an army. Let's go to the summary of the poem and then we'll come back here to explain and then read it again. Here we go. The poem describes the energy and excitement of a storm. In the first two stanzas, the poet focuses on the effects of the natural elements of the storm. What happens? Natural elements. The wind and the clouds as the storm is approaching. Then in the last stanza, the poet moves his focus to the people and the impact the storm has on them. The storm intensifies. The natural elements behave dramatically and terrifyingly, and the effect is powerful and destructive. And sometimes you have this type of classes, people in classes, the storm just intensifies and the natural elements behave dramatically and terrifyingly, and the effect is powerful and destructive. So let's move on. I just want to give you a bit of a background with regards to the poet himself. So, James Dave, why are you taking this so personally? I see other classes. James David Rubadiri was born in Malawi and went to school in Uganda. Listen, he developed a love of literature at primary school and started writing at a very young age. He went to the Makerere University in Kampala, Uganda, and then studied English literature in Cambridge in the University of Britain. Malawi won its independence. This is important. This is what this poem is going to allude to. Won its independence from Britain, which means they were colonized by Britain. Okay, in 1964, so they won the independence, and Rubadri was appointed Malawi's ambassador to the United States. However, he became increasingly opposed to the undemocratic leadership of President Banda and went into exile in Uganda. When the Ugandan dictator Idi Amin took power, Rubadri was again forced into exile in Kenya, where he became a lecturer at the University of Nairobi. I think that's about what we want to say about this guy. So he was widely opposed to the oppression, to colonialism, and everything else that goes along with that. Now, after you've seen the summary of the poem, let's go back and read the poem again to see if it makes a bit more sense. You will also see in this poem that they do make use of, what's the word I'm looking for? Enjambment. Do you remember what enjambment is? Smooth token, no punctuation, no geen leestekens. So you will see what happens. And why would they do that? Because it really sort of depicts how quickly the storm moves. It rumbles and everything happens and all the sounds that come along with it. Let's go. From the west, clouds come hurrying with the wind, turning sharply here and there, like a plague of locusts. What is that, like a plague of locusts? Figure of speech. You don't have to, it's actually the
word like was used, so it's a simile.
It's a simile. So they're comparing the clouds or they're comparing the storm to a plague of locusts that's going to settle somewhere, okay, on the crop. So, like a plague of locusts whirling, tossing up things in its tail, like a madman chasing nothing. Again, there's another simile, like a madman chasing nothing. Pregnant clouds ride stately on its back, gathering to, in other words, they are now gathering to perch on hills like sinister dark wings. The wind whistles by and trees bend to let it pass. What does it mean when we say the trees bend to let it pass? It's very strong. The storm is very strong. The winds are that strong. Then in the village, that's it. In the village, screams of delighted children toss and turn in the din of the whirling wind. And kids love that when there's a storm on the way and the wind is howling and going. And they just go mad in there. Women, babies clinging on their backs, dart about in and out madly. The wind whistles by whilst trees bend to let it pass again. Clothes wave like tattered flags, flying off to expose dangling breasts as jagged blinding flashes rumble, tremble and crack amidst the smell of fired smoke and the pelting march of the storm. Okay, let's go to the analysis of this poem. Maybe we should have a look to see what the theme is of the poem on page 32. Okay, the literal or surface meaning of this poem is the chaos and destruction of a storm and the helplessness of the people caught in its path. So it has literally, it means that the storm will cause a lot of chaos. It causes destruction, and then it also indicates the helplessness of the people against the strength or the power of the storm. However, there's another way to read this poem. To see the storm in its negative effects as a metaphor So the storm is now being referred negatively as a metaphor. Why? The storm could stand for British and European colonialism. That's why it was important to understand. Okay? Colonialism and the destructive impact it has had on the people of Africa. That you can underline. The second reading is possible if we consider the poet and the context in which he worked. Okay, so let's make up a question. Hypothetically, if they were to ask you in the context of the poet and his history, give the metaphorical meaning of the poem as a metaphor. You would then say the storm could stand for British and European colonialism and the destructive impact it has had on the people of Africa. That if they were to ask you that, the literal meaning or theme of this poem would be the chaos and destruction of the storm and the helplessness of the people caught in its path. Now, the second reading is possible if we consider the poet and the context in which he worked. He was part of the Malawian government after independence from Britain, and he stood for the rights of people to rule themselves and to determine how they live their lives. Great. I wonder, can you switch on a light for me, please? Because. Oh, no, you didn't. Oh, you did not. Girl, you're messing with the wrong people. You Malawians from now for you. Okay. Okay, great. Maybe I need a light from that side as well, please. I'm sorry. I'm that dark. Thank you. Ayun is for you. Kasi from Maini. Okay, here we go. So now we know the literal meaning of it and what the other possible metaphorical meaning of this of this poem would be. Let's talk about the type and form of this, or rather, let's discuss the title. The title locates the poem in Africa. We're on the same page. Just a little bit further up. The title locates the poem in Africa. The indefinite article. So this is one thing you must know for your paper ones. What is an article? You have a definite article and you have an indefinite article. The definite article is the word the, and the indefinite article is the word a or am. Because the definite article would say, he caught the 7:15 train. But the indefinite one would be caught a. So we don't know which one. We saw a man, we don't know, but we saw the man. Can you see that? So articles are the words a and the, and in this instance, and. Now let's read further. The indefinite article and suggests that the poem is about a generalized. Can you see that? And it's a generalized rather than specific event. So this is a general storm, it's not a specific storm. The word thunderstorm tells us that the poet will focus on this natural event. When we talk about an African thunderstorm, it's talking about any type, any storm, and thunderstorm would be, it talks about the natural elements of the storm. Natural elements of the storm. Okay, type and form. The poem has 3 stanzas, and I mean this, however, is very simple. If they were to ask me about type and form of a poem, I would go for it. You literally tell them what you see. The poem has 3 stanzas. It's written in free verse. What's free verse? Next wat? Niks wat? Dis wat gebeur as jy te veel tyd op haar net jou eie baas mos. Jy het niks. Jy kom met niks op ja. I see what it means.
So, there's no rhyming scheme?
No rhyming scheme, not rhyming couplet, no rhyming scheme. No, what? Okay. Why are they using this? If they were to ask you, why did the poet choose to use free verse in this poem? Thank you, Randy. It gives the poet the freedom to use words in a way that takes the form of the storm itself. Type in form. So why free verse? Because the storm cannot be determined or boxed. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it gives the poet the freedom to use words in a way that takes the form of the storm itself. Here we go. The lines are of different lengths. You can definitely underline that. And there's maybe some lines have only one single word. One single word. Sorry about that. Yeah, but that's a full line. That's a full-on line. The first two stanzas, let's talk about that. The unpredictable lengths mirror the unpredictability and chaos of the storm. You want to underline that. They can say, discuss the unpredictable lengths of the lines in this poem. You will say, it mirrors the unpredictability and the chaos of the storm. The first two stanzas are short to set out the advancing aspects of the storm and build up of the tension. So the first two stanzas are short because now everything is building up. The clouds are pregnant, this is happening, the wind is coming, the blah 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 blah. So it's setting up the tension of the storm. Then the last two stanzas are longer. They can ask you, why is the first two stanzas shorter? Why is the last one longer? It describes the effects of the storm on people and how they are at the mercy of the power of the elements. The last ones are longer because the people are subjected to the elements and the destruction of the storm. And so remember, when a storm has passed by and it has taken away houses and the works, that effect is still lasting. That effect is so devastating that sometimes months after a storm, people are still trying to recover from that particular storm. Okay, let's talk about the images they have used or chosen to use in this poem. What images? Do you have a question, Randy? Okay, stanza one. Here they are. The clouds are compared to a plague of locusts. We discussed that it is a simile. Remember that? Like locusts. And locusts brings destruction because of the way locusts descend on fields and crops and wipe out everything that is growing in a matter of minutes, causing starvation. The wind is compared to a powerful animal tossing up things in its tail like a dinosaur. So as the wind passes by, it looks like a powerful animal that just tosses things about. There we go. This is a metaphor. They didn't say like, it just says it's like this, it's an animal. The metaphor reinforces the animal savagery of the locusts, similarly to locust simile 2 lines earlier. So again, they talk about locust that is like a crawling insect or an insect, and now they're talking about an animal. So it connects the two, that it's as savagery as the locust. Now, in the last line, the wind is compared to a madman chasing nothing in line 9, and this simile, what is the function of it? So what you want to underline, tells us about the frightening unpredictability of the coming storm. A madman, you never know what to expect from a mad black woman. Okay, in stanza 2, the images, yes, images in stanza 2, what is it doing? It reinforces the comparisons with frightening creatures and introduced a new image of the storm. Again, they've used frightened creatures on top, and so now they are again just carrying on with it in stanza 2. The clouds are personified. You've discussed it and you said that they are pregnant. which suggests the weight of water they will release onto the land. So when a cloud is pregnant, it is big, it is dark, it is heavy, and they are going to release a weight of water onto the land. And they ride stately like queens. In line 12, they are gathering what? Why? Like a group that has strength in numbers. Okay. Yes. I'm so sorry. You can carry on. Hello? Was that you, Randy?
No, sir. It was a lash. Someone
Oh,
in this
Lashley.
picture. Yeah.
Lashley, I think Lashley, I don't think you should be in this class.
Yeah, I think I went in for accident and I did not even realize I wasn't muted. I was speaking to my little daughter.
Okay, no problem.
She
I'll,
on the bed,
I'll,
so I couldn't like focus.
okay, I'll see you later. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, thank you. The image then now. Oh, in line 13. Let's get to line 13. The poet continues with animal comparison. With an animal comparison, like dark, sinister wings, suggesting, can you see like dark? You also identified it as a simile. What is the function thereof? That the clouds are frightening birds of prey. Sinister wings, sinister frightens you, something that's sinister, and you get an eerie feeling. So they say that the clouds are frightening birds of prey. The image of the wind in the last line, in which the trees bend to let it pass, tells us the wind meets, there we go, no resistance, which heightens the power of the storm. In stanza 3, we are still talking about images. In stanza 3, the storm reaches a climax, and the image of chaos and destruction reflect the impact on humans. Okay, so remember now starts talking about humans, the children that play in the wind, the women that with their babies on their backs that cling to them and the works. So now that we are going to talk about those images and what it represents. So initially in line 17, there's a sense that the storm is fun because we hear screams of delighted children. They can ask you, what gives you the idea that the storm is fun? You refer to the delighted children, screams of delighted children. Kids are free like that. Then, but this happy image is contrasted with the restlessness and the uncertainty of women who, as they dart in and out madly, have you seen that? It's almost like when you dart, you throw something. So now the mothers are restless. What's happening outside? Oh, worried. So they could be looking in and out. They're wondering what's happening. Maybe someone's clothes are on the line. Maybe the kids are outside. Gather the kids at the unkom. You know that's happening there. So, and they are at the mercy of the storm. Now, there's a simile in line 27 that speaks of the women's clothes being torn off like tattered flags. Is an image of, here we go, loss. When your clothes are tattered, it's torn, tattered and torn. It's an image of loss. That's what tattered flags mean or represents here. And it underlines the sense of the storm as all powerful and ruthless. You will see that they keep on talking about the power of the storm, the strength of the storm. Even the trees bend over. That's how strong the forces are at play. In the last line, the metaphor in which the storm is compared, in which the storm is compared to an army, confirms the storm is a destructive force. So the pelting march of the storm compares the storm to an army, and that confirms the storm as a destructive force. There we go. So if this many army and for yellow. Okay, let's talk about sound devices. And we all know we have, I assume we all know, we have 4 sound devices. One would be Four sound devices. Yes, we always. I always lump it together for you. So
So
we.
we have
Yes.
so we have alliteration, we have automatopoeia, which is basically the sound of the like a sound basically spelled exactly the way it sounds.
Yes. So let's start. We
And
have assonance, repetition of vowels. We have alliteration, repetition of consonants. Then we have onomatopoeia, and we have sibilance, which is the repetition of the S sound. Great. Now, the drama continues. In stanza one, let's talk about that.
so there's someone now. There's someone now.
Hulle sê is te veel vir hulle. Hulle kan nie die goed. Hulle kan nie met my deal nie. Hulle kan nie met my deal nie. Let's talk about storms. As I said, sometimes the storm can be chaotic. Okay, here we go. Storms are noisy events. You get that? So in other words, they must use sound devices to represent, or what I call depict, to show out. What is that? Storms are noisy events. Yes. And thunderstorms are particularly frightening because of the noise. The poet has used a range of sound devices to create the effects of the wind, the rain, the thunder, and the lightning. In stanza 1, there's onomatopoeia in lines 2 and 7 with the words hurrying and whirling, and that creates the sound the wind makes while it's rushing through the air. In stanza 2 again, there's onomatopoeia again in line 14, which refers to whistles. In stanza 3, there are many sound devices to emphasize the arrival of the storm. Number 1, there's alliteration in line 18. Toss and turn, T and T, suggests the chaotic movement. Toss and turn is like that. No? The chaotic movement created by the strong wind. Then, in line 19, there's onomatopoeia of din, emphasizes the deep noise. Something's dinning, it's a dinning sound, it's a deep noise. And of whirling, continues the powerful movement and sound of the wind. It continues the powerful movement. That's what the onomatopoeia does. And the sound of the wind. The word whistles. Again, when you see that word, you almost hear the whistle. The wind whistle appears again. The word whistles appears again in line 25. And this repetition emphasizes the ongoing noise. That's what happens. Twist. Oh. I haven't. I'm gonna go check it out. And so that's a good. It's a good point of reference for you when you refer to this. Yeah, great. Then there's alliteration in lines 27. It's the next page. And lines 28. F, flying, flags flying off. It conjures up the sounds of the clothes flapping when it's flags flying off. So when clothes flap, it does that sound, okay? Flapping uncontrollably in the wind. Now, there again in line 31, there's onomatopoeia. Rumble is the noise of the thunder. We know that. Tremble is the shaking effect of the thunder. Crack is the loud, frightening noise when the thunder is very close. It's a crack that happens. Let's talk about the diction. In other words, we are referring to what words are they using to express something or to create an image. The poem is a good example of the power of the economy of poetry. In other words, how the careful choice of just a few words can have immense effect and contribute towards the beautiful qualities of the poem. Okay, they say in the economy of poetry, It means you are using powerful words to express. You don't use a lot of words, you're just using words to say exactly what you want to say. No? So, because the poem is about a physical action in the world, the choice of words helps to build the dynamicism of the storm. The verbs relate to movement. So, the words they use all relate to movement, and many of them are in a present participle. Remember, we did participles, present participle and past participle. Present participle, calm down, is ing. It's still happening. The boy is running. She is eating. Yes. And then ed is the past one. The boy walked. Yes, absolutely. Yes. I'm not even gonna say that I was right. So then the verbs it relates to movement, and it tells us that this is an ongoing. Why? If they ask you why have they used the present participle, ing will say because the movement of the storm is ongoing and continuous. Okay. Hmm? It's ongoing and the movement is continuous. Yes. Continuous. Okay, let's talk about this. Here are your words: hurrying, turning, whirling, tossing, chasing, all create a sense of this is your theme, chaotic movement. Did you see that it keeps coming up? Everything refers to the storm is chaotic. Then the action continues with ride, gathering, whistles, and bend in stanza 2. In stanza 3, we reach the climax of the storm with these verbs toss and turn, dart, whistles. So you want to say climax? These are your words: toss and turn, dart, whistles, wave, flying, rumble, tremble, and crack. Then there's the repetition of words, helps to emphasize the power of the wind. So if they repeat something, they want to emphasize something, okay? So the repetition of words help to emphasize. Again, it's either the chaotic movement or it's either the power of the wind and the powerlessness of everything in sight. The wind whistles by and trees bend to let it pass. In stanza 2 is repeated as the wind whistles by, whilst the trees bend to let it pass. In stanza 3. Stanza 1, the poet uses the word madman in line 9 and the word madly in stanza 3, line 24, to emphasize how irrational the storm is. Okay, we're almost there. Finally, the words associated with the children and women emphasize their helplessness. That's what you want to underline. The words associated with children and women emphasize their helplessness in the face of the storm. Here are the words: the children scream, babies are clinging, they are helpless, so they're clinging to their mom. Remember, the women dart about in and out. We spoke about that. They are helpless. They have to wait for the storm to calm down to get out. And their clothes are torn off. They are helpless by the wind in and the wave like tattered flags. We are done, really. Give me 60 seconds. While this poem is dynamic and echoes the energy of the storm, the tone is ominous, suggesting something bad. When you have an ominous mood or tone, it's almost like something is going to happen, an eerie feeling that you get. Now, words like plague and madman in stanza 1. Can you see that? Dark, sinister, and madly, jagged, blinding, rumble, tremble, and crack in stanza 3 all contribute to an uneasy, that's what you want to underline, uncomfortable mood. Let's go back to the first line, the end of that first line. The tone is ominous, eerie, but now we're talking about the mood. The mood is uneasy and uncomfortable. This ominous tone contributes to the idea that the storm is a metaphor. It symbolizes the destruction caused by. You are right where you need to be, just above that block. Are you where the block is? Okay, just above that. It symbolizes the destruction caused by colonialism. Remember, we discussed that they were colonized. Malawi was colonized by the British and Europe. Okay, the storm comes like a plague of locusts, which causes starvation. Locusts will cause starvation, and it tears off the women's clothing, taking what little they have, and then short, uneven lines, especially in stanza 3, which brings the climax of the storm, help create a mood of chaos and devastation. The short lines, pop, 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 help create a mood of chaos and devastation. Let's go back up. The tone is ominous or it is eerie. The mood up there in stanza 1 and 2 are uneasy and uncomfortable. Then we're going to say the storm is like a plague, it causes starvation. Then it says the uneven and short lines. I'm just summing up for you, just a summary. The short lines is helping to create a mood of chaos and devastation. Okay, great. That's it for tonight. Thank you so much. You and Kiko Bayad was doing. Thank you.
So,
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night. En julle teen is so mooi
Mr. G,
gedrag.
Mr. G.
Yes, Your Highness.
So you need to charge your battery. Also,
Jy kan nie met jou.
so this is about an actual storm.
Yes.
Like,
Sorry.
like the colonialism isn't like represented by the storm, right? So this
The
is about
colonialism is a metaphor. They're using the storm as a metaphor to say
colonial.
that's correct. Thank you so much. Have a good one. Randy, is that okay with you? Are you getting it? Thank you. That's sorry, everyone. There we go. I'm back. I'm gonna use this if I can. Actually, no. Okay. Home language guys, are you around? Let me just get rid of this.